Discipline begins with clarity. Without a clear target, discipline has no direction. It's like trying to steer a ship without a destination. You may be moving, but you're going nowhere. Clarity gives your actions purpose, and that purpose gives discipline its energy. If you don't know exactly what you want, your efforts will be scattered, your motivation will fade, and your results will be inconsistent at best. But when your goals are sharp, specific, and meaningful, discipline becomes less of a burden and more of a natural response to your ambition. The first step toward clarity is defining what success looks like for you. Not what someone else wants, not what the world tells you should matter, but what truly matters to you. That means taking the time to reflect, to think, to write it down. What do you want your life to look like in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? What kind of health do you want? What level of income? What kind of relationships? Until you define it, you can't build a disciplined life around it. A vague goal like, I want to be successful, doesn't activate discipline. It's too broad, too unclear. But a goal like, I want to save $10,000, 0 cents by December 31st, or I will exercise for 30 minutes every morning at 6 a.m., gives your discipline something solid to anchor to. That kind of clarity tells your mind, here's what we're doing, here's when we're doing it, and here's why. And that's when your behavior starts to align with your intentions. Clarity also helps you prioritize. Life is full of distractions, some good, some bad, but without clear goals, you won't know what to say yes to and what to turn down. When you're clear on what you want, it becomes easier to eliminate the noise. You can focus your time, energy, and resources on the things that actually move you forward. That's not just smart, it's powerful. Clarity gives you permission to say no to what doesn't serve you and yes to what does. Discipline often breaks down when people don't have a strong why. Clarity connects you with your why. It reminds you of the reason behind the effort, the sacrifice, and the persistence. Why do you want to be healthier? Why do you want financial freedom? Why do you want to master your craft? When the why is strong, the how becomes easier. Discipline without a why feels like punishment. Discipline with a clear why feels like purpose. Clarity also reduces emotional resistance. When your goals are foggy, it's easier to procrastinate, to rationalize, to avoid the hard work. But when your path is defined, your actions become automatic. You don't need to negotiate with yourself every morning about whether or not to follow through. You've already made the decision. You don't waste time questioning or second guessing. You simply act because the destination is clear and the steps are known. It's also important to review your goals regularly. Clarity isn't a one-time decision, it's a daily habit. Remind yourself often of where you're headed. Read your goals in the morning, reflect on them at night, let them live in your mind. This mental repetition strengthens your focus and makes discipline feel more like a natural extension of your thinking. When your goals stay top of mind, your actions naturally begin to follow suit. The more specific you are with your goals, the more measurable your progress becomes. And when you can measure your progress, you can adjust your actions. That feedback loop is what creates lasting change. Clarity sharpens the feedback. It shows you what's working, what's not, and where to course correct. Discipline thrives in that environment because it knows exactly what to do next. In the end, clarity isn't just about knowing what you want. It's about creating a blueprint that discipline can follow. The clearer the vision, the stronger the commitment. And the stronger the commitment, the more disciplined your actions will become. Clarity turns vague desires into actionable goals and gives discipline the direction it needs to do its job. Discipline is not something you wake up with one day after reading a quote or feeling inspired by a speech. It's something that grows quietly through repeated action, through small, consistent habits that build upon each other day by day. These habits don't need to be grand or impressive. In fact, it's the simplicity of them that makes them powerful. Small actions are easier to begin, easier to sustain, and when done consistently, they begin to change not just your routine, but your identity. The beauty of small habits is that they bypass the resistance of the mind. When you tell yourself you're going to change your entire life overnight, your brain pushes back. It gets overwhelmed. But when you say, I'll do 5 push-ups or I'll write for 10 minutes, there's little resistance. It's small, it feels doable, and once you start, you often do more than you planned. That's the power of momentum. Small habits open the door to action, and action invites consistency. Consistency, more than intensity, is what builds discipline. Anyone can push hard for a day. Anyone can eat clean for a week. But real discipline shows up when you can keep a small promise to yourself every day, regardless of mood or motivation. That's where habits come in. They give your discipline a routine to follow. They automate good choices. And the more you repeat them, the less mental energy they require. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't need motivation to do it. It's just part of your day. You don't argue with yourself about whether or not it's necessary. That's the power of habit. Now imagine if your health habits, your learning habits, your work habits all ran with that same level of automation. That's what small, consistent habits can lead to. They take things that used to require effort and turn them into second nature. Discipline grows stronger when it becomes part of your daily rhythm. When you tie new habits to things you already do, like reading for 5 minutes after your morning coffee or stretching for 10 minutes after brushing your teeth, you create a chain of behaviors that reinforce each other. These patterns start to define your day, and eventually they define your life. You don't need to overhaul your entire routine to improve your discipline. Start by identifying 1 or 2 key habits that align with your goals. Maybe it's writing a daily journal, planning your next day each evening, reading a page of a good book, or meditating for 5 minutes. Don't focus on how big the habit is. Focus on doing it every day. The repetition is what counts. The consistency is what makes the difference. And here's something else. Small habits give you quick wins. When you complete a small task, you get a sense of accomplishment. That feeling builds confidence. Confidence builds momentum, and momentum supports discipline. It becomes a positive cycle where success feeds more success. You begin to feel proud of your consistency, and that pride pushes you to keep going. Over time, small habits compound. Just like money compounds with interest, your habits compound with repetition. The results might be invisible in the beginning, but give them time. The person who reads 10 pages a day will have read over 3,500 pages in a year. The person who saves a few dollars a day will build a cushion. The person who writes 1 paragraph a day might finish a book. That's the quiet magic of small habits done consistently. Discipline isn't built in big dramatic moments. It's built in the small decisions you make each day. Whether you keep your promise, whether you follow through, whether you show up, these are the decisions that shape your discipline. And the best way to start making better decisions is to build small habits that align with the kind of person you want to become. One of the most powerful ways to strengthen discipline is to track your progress. It's simple, but it's life-changing. What gets measured gets improved, and what gets ignored often fades away. When you track your actions, your habits, your performance, you're creating awareness. And awareness is the birthplace of discipline. It's hard to lie to yourself when the data is staring you in the face. Tracking keeps you honest, focused, and engaged with your goals. When you're building discipline, you need to know where you're starting and how far you've come. Most people give up on their goals not because they aren't working, but because they don't see or feel progress fast enough. Tracking removes the guesswork. It shows you in black and white what's working and what isn't. You can't argue with a journal entry. You can't deny numbers on a page. That truth forces you to stay accountable. Tracking also builds a sense of accomplishment. Every time you write down that you followed through, whether it's a workout, a chapter read, or a day without distraction, you reinforce your identity as someone who is disciplined. That consistency builds pride. It might not seem like much to tick a checkbox or write down a number, but psychologically, it matters. Those little wins stack up, and over time, they become your personal proof that you're making progress. Discipline often feels hard because results take time. The danger is, if you don't track your progress, you might miss the slow and steady improvement. You'll feel like nothing is happening, and you'll be tempted to quit. But when you track, you see it. You see that you worked out 15 times this month instead of 3. You see that your savings grew by a few $100s. You see that you wrote 20 pages this week. That visibility fuels your motivation and reminds you that your effort is not in vain. Tracking doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as a journal, a notebook, or even a sticky note. Some people use apps or spreadsheets. Others use wall calendars and check marks. The tool doesn't matter. The habit does. The point is to keep a running record of what you're doing every day without exception. That log becomes your mirror, and it reflects whether you're living up to your standards or slipping into excuses. Another benefit of tracking is that it helps you adjust intelligently. If you're trying to lose weight and you're tracking your meals and your workouts, you can spot patterns. Maybe weekends are your weak spot. If you're building a business and tracking sales calls, you'll notice what times of day are most productive. Tracking doesn't just measure, it teaches. It helps you course correct before problems become patterns. And that kind of awareness is what makes discipline sustainable. Tracking also gives you something to celebrate. Most of us are so focused on what we haven't achieved yet that we forget to acknowledge what we've already done. When you track your progress, you can look back over the week, the month, the year, and say, "Look how far I've come." That celebration is fuel. It keeps your energy high and your mind focused. Discipline thrives on progress, and progress becomes real when it's recorded. Sometimes people resist tracking because they're afraid of what it might reveal. Maybe the truth is they're not as consistent as they claim. But that's exactly why it's needed. Tracking strips away illusions. It brings discipline into the light where it can grow. You can't fix what you don't see, and you won't grow what you don't measure. Discipline isn't just about trying harder, it's about being smarter. And tracking is a smart move. When you track your progress, you build a habit of responsibility. You learn to take ownership, not just of your goals, but of the steps it takes to reach them. That's when discipline becomes less of a struggle and more of a system. And once discipline becomes a system, success becomes inevitable. Discipline thrives in an environment that supports it, and one of the smartest ways to strengthen your discipline is to remove temptations from your daily life. Temptation is the silent enemy of progress. It lurks in your phone, your pantry, your habits, and even in your schedule. And the truth is, no matter how strong your willpower is, if you constantly surround yourself with distractions and temptations, you're going to lose the fight more often than not. Discipline doesn't mean fighting temptation every minute of the day. It means setting up your environment so that you don't have to. One of the most important principles of behavior is that we tend to take the path of least resistance. We do what's easy. So if junk food is within reach, we eat it. If the TV remote is on the couch, we turn it on. If social media is on the home screen of our phone, we tap it without thinking. It's not that we're lazy or weak. It's that we're human. But when you remove temptations, you raise the resistance to bad habits and lower the resistance to good ones. That's not cheating, that's wisdom. Take your physical space, for example. If your goal is to eat healthier, then fill your kitchen with healthy foods and get rid of the snacks that derail you. Don't keep the cookies just in case. If they're there, you'll eat them. If your goal is to read more, then place books where you can see them and keep your phone in another room. If you want to work out in the morning, lay out your clothes the night before and set your shoes by the door. These small environmental changes make a big difference. They reduce friction for the behaviors you want and increase it for the ones you're trying to avoid. The same goes for digital temptations. If you're trying to stay focused at work, don't rely on willpower to avoid distractions. Remove them. Use website blockers. Turn off notifications, delete unnecessary apps, or set your phone to do not disturb during your most important hours. The more steps it takes to access a distraction, the less likely you are to give in. Create barriers between you and the things that pull you off course. Make it hard to make the wrong choice. Temptation doesn't just exist in things, it also exists in people and routines. Sometimes you need to reevaluate who and what you allow into your time. Are there people who constantly pull you away from your goals? Are there habits or routines that sabotage your progress? You may need to distance yourself or restructure your day. Discipline isn't just about saying yes to what matters, it's about saying no to what doesn't. And often, the biggest wins come from what you eliminate, not what you add. Removing temptation also frees up mental energy. Every time you have to make a decision, whether to scroll, snack, or snooze, you're using up valuable willpower. And willpower is a limited resource. But when you design your environment to support your discipline, you don't need to fight as many battles. You create systems that guide you automatically toward the behaviors that align with your goals. This is how discipline becomes less about constant struggle and more about smart design. Even something as simple as keeping your workspace clean can help. Clutter creates distraction. Order creates focus. Your environment reflects your mindset. And when you clean up your space, you're more likely to stay disciplined. You feel more in control, and that sense of control reinforces your commitment. Remember, the goal isn't to rely on willpower all day long. The goal is to build systems and spaces that make the right choice the easy choice. That's how discipline becomes sustainable. By removing temptations, you create an environment where your goals don't have to compete with constant distraction. You give your discipline the space it needs to breathe, grow, and lead you forward. Delayed gratification is one of the true signs of maturity, and it lies at the heart of real discipline. It's the ability to resist the pull of immediate pleasure in exchange for something far more valuable down the road. And in a world that's conditioned us to want everything fast food, fast results, fast answers, learning to wait, to sacrifice now so you can enjoy later is not just rare, it's powerful. Delayed gratification is what separates those who live reactively from those who live intentionally. You see, the person who can delay gratification has learned how to say no, not out of punishment or deprivation, but out of vision and purpose. They've trained themselves to look beyond today and consider the long-term impact of their choices. They understand that the candy bar now can mean health problems later, that the quick purchase now can mean financial stress later, that skipping the workout today can mean missed goals tomorrow. Discipline in this sense is about trading short-term comfort for long-term gain. One of the greatest examples of delayed gratification is saving and investing. You could spend every dollar you make and it might feel good in the moment. But the disciplined individual puts some aside month after month, year after year, knowing that over time, small deposits grow into financial freedom. The same principle applies to learning. You could watch television every evening, or you could invest that time in reading, learning a new skill, building your future. It doesn't give you a dopamine rush right away, but it gives you something much better, growth. Discipline is about being able to live with the temporary discomfort of sacrifice. There's nothing wrong with enjoying life, but when enjoyment is your default and growth takes a back seat, you start to live for the moment. And that moment eventually costs you. Delayed gratification builds character. It teaches patience, foresight, and emotional strength. It develops your ability to prioritize what truly matters. The challenge is that short-term pleasures are always louder than long-term rewards. The dessert calls to you louder than the scale. The couch speaks louder than the treadmill. The buy now button screams louder than your retirement plan. But if you train yourself to pause, to think, to weigh the cost, you begin to act from intention, not impulse. That's where real discipline lives, in the space between the stimulus and the response. One way to strengthen your ability to delay gratification is to constantly remind yourself of your why. Why are you choosing to skip the party and study tonight? Why are you waking up at 5 a.m. to run? Why are you saying no to spending? If your reason is strong enough, the resistance becomes manageable. When the goal is clear and the future is compelling, the sacrifice feels like a step forward, not a step back. Another way to build this muscle is to practice it in small areas. Maybe you wait 30 minutes before checking your phone in the morning. Maybe you hold off on dessert for one extra day. Maybe you force yourself to save $10.00 every time you're tempted to buy something you don't need. These small acts of restraint build strength over time, and that strength transfers into bigger, more meaningful areas of life. Every time you delay gratification, you're reinforcing the belief that you are in control. Not your cravings, not your emotions, not the noise around you. That belief is at the core of discipline. It's the voice inside that says, I may want it now, but I want something greater later. And when you live with that mindset, you start to make choices that align with your future self, not your current urges. It's not about being rigid or never enjoying the present. It's about understanding that life is a series of trade-offs. You're always trading time, energy, and resources for something. The question is, are you trading for something that will benefit you now and cost you later? Or are you investing now for something that will reward you for years to come? Delayed gratification is that investment. It's the discipline to build now so you can enjoy more and regret less later. Who you surround yourself with plays a crucial role in the level of discipline you're able to develop and sustain. Environment shapes behavior, and the people in your environment have a direct influence on how you think, act, and respond. If you want to become more disciplined, one of the most effective strategies is to intentionally associate with people who already live with discipline. Their presence, their habits, and their mindset will begin to affect you more than you realize. It's easy to underestimate how much of our behavior is modeled after those around us. We adapt. We pick up cues, copy language, adopt routines, and often settle into the standard of our social circle. So if the people around you make excuses, quit easily, or avoid responsibility, that standard becomes normal to you. And when mediocrity becomes normal, discipline seems extreme. On the other hand, if you spend time with people who show up early, follow through, stay focused, and hold themselves to high standards, that behavior becomes your new baseline. Discipline starts to feel less like a struggle and more like the expected way of life. There's power in proximity. When you see someone working hard consistently, not because they have to, but because they choose to, it makes you question your own habits. Their actions challenge you without them saying a word. You start to think, if they can do it, why can't I? That quiet form of accountability is incredibly effective. You begin to raise your standards not because someone is forcing you to, but because you've seen what's possible and you don't want to be the weak link in the room. Surrounding yourself with disciplined individuals also brings you into environments where excellence is the norm. You're no longer the only one trying to eat clean, wake up early, invest wisely, or study late. You're not swimming against the current, you're moving with a current that supports your goals. That shared energy can carry you through the tough days when your motivation is low. It's easier to stay on track when the people around you are walking the same path. Conversations change when you upgrade your circle. Instead of talking about distractions and entertainment, you talk about ideas, goals, challenges, and growth. Instead of complaining about how hard it is to stay disciplined, you're trading strategies on how to improve your systems. That shift in dialogue feeds your focus. You learn new ways to stay consistent. You gain insights from others' routine. You hear real stories of discipline paying off, and that keeps you inspired to continue. Sometimes it's not just about finding disciplined people, it's also about distancing yourself from people who consistently derail your progress. That doesn't mean cutting everyone off, but it does mean protecting your energy and being selective about who gets your time and attention. Discipline is fragile in the wrong company. One negative influence, one friend who constantly encourages bad habits or mocks your goals can make the journey twice as hard, but one strong influence who believes in consistency, effort, and standards can make it twice as easy. Mentorship is another way to bring disciplined people into your life. You don't have to be close friends to be influenced. You can read their books, listen to their talks, follow their work. Let their discipline speak to you. Let their example raise your expectations. Learn how they structure their days, how they manage distractions, how they recover from setbacks. Use their experience to guide your own development. Ultimately, discipline isn't just an internal decision. It's a product of the culture you create around yourself. And people are the biggest part of that culture. Build relationships with those who push you, challenge you, and support your journey. Spend time with people who remind you who you want to become. And if you can't find them in person, find them through their words, their actions, their content. Feed your mind with disciplined voices, because over time, those voices become your own. Discipline isn't something you're born with, it's something you build step by step through the choices you make and the environment you create. Whether it's gaining clarity on your goals, forming small daily habits, tracking your progress, removing temptations, delaying gratification, or surrounding yourself with the right people, each technique works like a building block. Stack them one on top of the other, and you begin to construct a life that runs on purpose, not impulse. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent. And when you live that way, you don't just chase success, you invite it, prepare for it, and eventually become the kind of person success is drawn to.